Hi, welcome to my backyard. Cindy here from Backyard City Homestead. It is a beautiful day in September. We have had nowhere near frost scares yet, and so but it is September, so we're counting the days. So I am out here just doing, I'm starting to put my garden to bed. I've got a lot of seed I want to pick today or harvest today, and I'm going to start with the garlic chives. So this here, I've got 2 garlic chive plants here, and I've got a big bucket, and I'm just right now just very carefully picking the heads. Do you see these, all that black seed? Like if you just leave this, normally if I had no intention of harvesting the seed, then I would have picked these a long time before they went to seed, and I would have just used them in the house for as a fresh flower because they're very beautiful. But now that they are going to seed, if I leave them, we're gonna have 8 billion little garlic chive plants, which is okay if you want 8 billion little garlic chive plants, but not if you don't. They're really, I don't want to risk, well, some of them are going to drop no matter what I do. Like I just dropped some. But what I really would like to do is get them in that container so that I can take the seeds off of them in the house when it's more controlled. That's actually quite a bit. I do have some more, so I'm going to pick those. Look at that. Without too much encouragement. I mean, how easy is that? So this is dill. You can see that it's gone to seed. So this is absolutely perfect. Some of it, most of it is ripe. Everything, I'm going to leave that one. But I'll take this one and this one so you can see that the seed is kind of dark. This seed is just not fully developed, but very shortly will be. So we'll leave that one for next time. Some of it I'm going to plant this year before the winter, in fact today, and some of it I will take in and plant it in the spring, and some of it we will actually just use as seasoning, as dill seed. All right, so this is a really good example. So this is the dill that's grown in the strawberry patch. You can see some that is ripe, some that is almost ripe, almost ripe. I'm not even sure that's gonna have time to ripen. And look at this one, it's just transitioning from flowers to seed. So I'm gonna take what I can, and we'll hope for the rest. Oh, we've got quite a bit here. I don't want to wait any longer in the season, just because if we have a freeze up, then I'll lose stuff. Whoops. There. And I'll get one more over here. Dropping lots. That's called planting dill. All right, so this is the seed. So here's the flower. There's the flower. The flower wants to go to seed. This is the seed that's all ripened. And I'm gonna just pull the seed, and I'm gonna just spread the seed. That's it. So that is like 100 or 200 feverfew plants that are in there, and that's really all I want. I will actually take some of these and I'll spread them throughout the garden because I like them to grow in the spring wherever they want, and then I just pull them up wherever I don't want them. But in the meantime, this is a lot of seed and I don't want all that seed, so I'm going to pull all of this up and I am going to burn it because I really don't want 8 billion feverfew plants next year. I want lots, but not as many as these seeds are. All right, we're gonna do some poppy seed, but I got distracted with this beautiful sunflower, and look at all those little flowers. So I'm gonna cut it off because, sorry, that didn't sound very good. Look at this beautiful thing. I'm going to kill it. I'm gonna bring this in the house because the sunflowers I have in the house need to be replaced. So I'm gonna just set this aside, and I'm gonna come back and get that when we're done with the poppies. Whoa! And then we'll put it in my vase in the kitchen. All right, so I'm just getting rid of these leaves because they're all brown and crispy anyway, and if I don't, then they're just gonna be all over the place in my bowl and in the house. So what I'm gonna do with these is, like, they're pretty, right? Pretty in an autumn kind of way. So I am gonna bring these in and I'm gonna use them in some autumn bouquets. So the reason I don't wanna break them is because I just wanna use them in the house for a floral arrangement, a dead floral arrangement. All right, so this will be the last one for now. All right, so this is our east side garden. There's the kitchen door. And right now it's a big mess. It really needs to be cleaned up. Several flowers that I need to just cut and bring in the house, and lots I need to just dig up. But I noticed this summer that I didn't get any poppies over here. So I'm going to take one of these and I'm just going to sprinkle some poppy seed here. Oh, I put them all in almost one spot. So I'm going to get a bunch of poppies right here. And that's okay. It'll be a good start. Maybe I'll do a little bit more here. All right, and then I'm going to take this over to the rhubarb patch and plant this over there. All right, so this area here, no poppies. So, and actually, the reason we don't have any poppies here is because we used to have 3 spruces here. We took them down a few years ago, and we amended the soil with straw and horse manure, and so now we're just kind of reseeding it. So I've got lots of things planted here. I've got some Saskatoons in the back and lots of currant bushes and 3 rhubarbs and an apple tree. And then I've got some flowers that have already finished and I've cut them off, and some kale just for the year. And so I am going to plant in the front here. I don't want it where the rhubarb will just shade it all out, but in the front here I'm just going to put some poppies. There. Okay. So what will happen in the spring is I'm going to have like about 1,000 poppies here. And I don't want 1,000 poppies, because if you let poppies grow, if you let them grow in mass, then they'll just grow little and they won't amount to anything. So what I'll do is I'll find the spots that I want them, that they're going to get the best sun, and then I'll just thin them out so that we have a single poppy growing, and then that single poppy can grow tall and make a bigger head and make more poppy seed. So of the 1,000 poppy seeds that just got planted in this area, probably I will let maybe 10 or 12 grow, and then we'll be happy with the poppy seed that we get from them. All right, so I just took all these seed heads out of the white tub that I had, and this is the seed that I have right now. I've got a lot more seed, but you don't need to sit here through all that. So I'm going to just show you a little trick. So I've got a little strainer here. I'm going to just take some of the seed with a spoon. So I've got seed and chaff in there and a few other things. So I'm just going to lightly shake it. I don't know if you can see, but I'm losing a lot of really small pieces of chaff and maybe little tiny bugs, I suppose. All right, so that's good enough. And then I'm gonna, so look at that. It's not too bad. Some chaff on there. I'm gonna just dump the chaff and the seed in here. So watch this. So I normally wouldn't do this in the house because I don't want this all over the place, but for your benefit, I will do it in the house. So shake it all up so that I've got the chaff on the top, and watch this. Can you see all that? That's just chaff blowing up everywhere. So that's all over my face. I don't know if you can see that small stuff. So what I'm doing is the chaff is very light and it goes to the top. And when I blow it, just kind of like in pioneer days when they would separate the wheat from the chaff, and then they would kind of bounce it up, and then the wind would take the chaff, but the wheat would be heavy and it would sit. So it's the same principle. So I would do this outside with a bigger tub than this, but I've got a little whirlwind going on in here, which separates. So already you can see that most of it's gone. So that's how I'm going to finish this. And when I end up, I will show some pictures of just the black seed that's left. I'm not going to worry if there's a little small piece of chaff in something that I put away. I will put it in a little jar or something and store it in the cupboard, because this, I am not planting this. I have a ton of seeds out there that are already planted. I'm going to have enough garlic chives. So this I'm just going to use in the kitchen. All right, so this is the dill. So this is the dill we brought in, the dill seed that we brought in. If you've watched previous videos, you might have seen how I use dill weed. And then this is the leftovers. So look at, it's really pretty actually. Maybe some of those last heads I'll use for arrangements. Okay, so all I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna loosen this into a plate. So let's just do that a little bit quicker. Look at all that. So I normally don't use dill seed. I just plant it, but I have a lot this year. So I think I'm gonna convert myself into a fan of dill seed this year. I think I'll be using it on bread, and I'm gonna find all kinds of ways of using it because I have a lot, more than I will ever need for seed. So I'm gonna just put it straight in the jar. Well, that's a miracle. Okay, I'm not gonna worry about the details there because I've got lots more to do. But look at that. I think I'm gonna end up with half a pint by the time I'm finished, because I've still got more dill outside. That's a lot of dill seed. That's kind of exciting. So I'm not gonna put the lid back. So I've got an airtight lid. I'm not gonna put the airtight lid on for a few days, because even though this looks really dry, and I think it is pretty dry, I'm not gonna count on that. Last thing, there's probably moisture in there I am not aware of, and the last thing I want is for it to condense in there and then me lose the whole thing. So I will leave the lid off for probably most of this week actually, and then I'll put the lid back on. Okay, so this is the poppy seed that we shook out of the poppy heads when we were outside. And eventually, I'm not gonna put them in right now because I want to use some of these still to plant poppies in a couple of other areas in my garden. But eventually, whatever I collect that I don't need, actually, some of it I will put in a little envelope and I will label them. And if I have more than I need, then I will just put them in here. And this is my poppies that I keep in the kitchen. Let me just open that up. And this is what I use for baking and cooking and whatever else. It's kind of, that's a lot of poppy seed, but that's actually a lot of years of poppy seed too. And so if I don't need to worry about growing it, then I can put them in here. If I want to grow them, then I want to make sure that they're fresh from this year, and I will separate them. So anyway, that's what the poppy seed's all about. Maybe later on this year we'll do some videos using the poppy seed in some baking. So I'm going to set that aside, and I'm going to show you, so I showed you when we were outside the kale seed. So that's what this is. And so I'm going to just take one of these off and then just break it so that you can see, whoops. You see all those little white or little black seeds in there. So I am at, oh, there's lots. Look at that. There's lots in there. Okay, they're little and I don't want to risk losing them. So I am not gonna take anything else out of the pod. I'm gonna just leave them in the pod where they're protected. And I'm gonna put them, and I know these pods are dry. There were a couple out there that weren't quite dry. I'm gonna let those sit for another few days, maybe another week. And then I will get those too. And then I'm gonna put all of these in an envelope. So let me just see, I did nasturtium, dill, chamomile. All right, so I'm gonna just label this. I'm just gonna, just really basic information. It's kale, actually it's curly kale. So I'll write down curly kale and just the year. So that might be backwards for you. Curly kale, 2022. And then I'm gonna just take those seed pods and put them in the envelope. And all those little seeds that I just took out, I will put those in there too. And so they will be very protected. I'm using a paper envelope as opposed to a plastic bag and as opposed to a glass jar, just because I don't want to risk anything condensing if it's not quite as dry as I think it is. Whoops, let's see if I could dump that in there. There we go. And so I want them to continue to dry out, and paper is going to protect that. So I will seal it. I'm not going to right now because I'm not finished. I'm going to add more, and then I will seal it, and I will just put it with my seed this year. All right, so that's the kale. So we did the dill, we did the garlic chives, we did the poppies, we did the kale. Let me show you what I've got here. Can you pass me that chamomile? All right, so this is chamomile dried, and I like chamomile tea. So that's what I'm going to do with this. This is the whole winter full of chamomile tea. This is actually probably more than one winter full of chamomile tea. So, but in addition to the chamomile tea, I have let some of the chamomile dry a little further. And so what I've got is, whoops, there. So I've just got a little head here. I'm gonna just crush it. And you see all that seed that just comes out of that. And so that seed, and I don't actually need to crush all of this, just like the kale, I'll keep some of it in the seed heads. And I do have one that's labeled. I'm gonna just, this is for, you know what, the funny thing is, chamomile is a noxious weed in Alberta, from what I understand. And that means we don't like it, except that I like it. And I have noticed that you can buy chamomile seed now. For the longest time you couldn't. But chamomile is a good thing to grow. I do have it growing in a couple of different spots in my garden. Yes, it's a weed. Yes, it will volunteer. But it took me a few years to get it to the point where it can volunteer. And so I'm very, very happy to have the seed. And I will plant chamomile. In fact, I'll plant it this fall in a few more spots in my yard because I do like it. You know what? Just don't let it take over. That's all. Just be in charge of your garden and don't let it take over. I don't find it's that aggressive, quite honest. Maybe in a field, it might get really aggressive and farmers would hate it. But my garden's not that big. So there's some chamomile that I'm going to put away, and it's labeled with the year. And I'll set that aside. And now what I've got here, I'll dump it in here. These are nasturtium seeds. So, there we go. So some of them are already brown. Some of them are, to be honest with you, some of these came out a little bit early and they might have been a little bit too green, and I'm not 100% sure that they'll be viable. And so when I plant this next year, I might plant 2 for every one, and then hopefully I'll get some good return. But I had to pull up some nasturtiums that weren't quite ripe. And I regretted it, but it was what it was. So I'm going to put some of those in seeds. I'll let those just continue to ripen. Hopefully they'll be my friends. And if not, then we'll just make sure we have lots of nasturtiums to back them up. All right. So these are sweet pea seeds, sweet pea seed pods. And you didn't see me collect these today because I cut them off the other day. So and you can tell they're ripe because they're nice and crispy. And inside each one of these wonderful seed pods are a few sweet pea seeds. So I am going to put them in a labeled envelope. But again, I'm not going to take the rest of these out of these pods. These are nice, it's protected. I'm going to put all of these pods just in that envelope. I love sweet peas. This is for me to plant in the house next spring, early spring, and transplant into my garden next year. So there is a very small taste of the beginning of putting your garden to bed. So Rebecca's come over to help me in the garden. We're going to be harvesting herbs today, the rest of the herbs at the end of the season. We have been harvesting all year. And we'll bring in a few more seeds, and we will cut some perennials down, and all that is part of putting your garden to bed. But the beginning is finishing the harvest. So I also have some kale that I need to bring in. So I have got some seeds that I've put away. I'm going to put away for the winter that I will be using next spring. I have some that I'm going to be turning into tea. I have some that I'm going to be using for seasoning this year. And in the poppy seed, in the case of the poppy seeds, I will be planting some of those. And then we will use those for baking all winter long. And it's kind of a fun time of year to be bringing all the rest of it in. So stay tuned. The next few videos we do are going to be about putting the rest of your garden to bed. Thanks. Hi. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something. I'd love to hear about it. If you have any comments, I'd love to hear them. If you liked it, do me a favor and click the like button. If you know somebody who would benefit from it, then definitely share it with them. And if you'd like to know more about these sorts of things, then stick around.